Neutron's compressor is so good they put it in twice. Actually, knowing that many people like to chain compressors to achieve stronger processing without artifacts, iZotope wanted to make sure that Neutron could handle this without the need to add other effects to the picture, so they provided dual compressor slots. Let's take a look at the compressor and see what it has on tap. Neutron's compressor, like all the main modules, can be operated as a single-band processor or as a 2- or 3-band multi-band processor. Before I get into the multi-band features, I'll enable just a single band and go over the basic controls. Of course, you have all the standard compressor settings: ratio, threshold, attack, release, and makeup gain. I won't spend time explaining what these do. Again, I'll assume that people interested in a tool like Neutron already have a basic familiarity with the workings of a compressor. The ratio extends from 1:1 all the way up to 30:1 for limiting, but you can also dial up negative values, shown in parentheses, for upward compression. This is a mode where, instead of the normal operation, reducing the gain of signals that go above the threshold, the compressor will instead increase the gain of signals that fall below the threshold. This will still reduce dynamic range, but instead of processing the loudest bits and then bringing up the quiet parts with the makeup gain, this can bring up the quiet stuff without messing with the attacks and releases of the louder portions of the signal. In the standard compressor mode, you also have a variable knee control. A harder knee results in gain reduction occurring only as the threshold is crossed at the set ratio. Softer knee settings allow for a more gradual onset of gain reduction, beginning slightly before the threshold is reached, usually at a slightly lower ratio, and then increasing to the set ratio gradually after the threshold is exceeded. This provides a smoother compression characteristic and usually lets you dial up stronger compression with fewer artifacts. In the center is the main display. The bottom part shows the crossover points in multi-band mode. I'll come back to that. The top half is a histogram showing when and how much gain reduction is happening in real time. Up above the display to the left, the button enables the compressor's vintage mode. This introduces some light saturation for a characteristic vintage analog warmth. When vintage mode is enabled, the histogram is replaced by a more classic gain reduction VU style meter, one for each band. You have the button to enable high and low cut filters in the sidechain path. Remember, all compressors utilize an internal sidechain signal, split from the main signal, for threshold detection. Since that signal is never heard, filtering added here also won't be heard, but it will affect the compressor's response. For example, low frequencies can often trigger compression too aggressively, so filtering out some of the low end can provide a smoother compression characteristic. Another button lets you audition just the sidechain signal, so you can hear how the filtering is changing the signal that'll determine the compressor's response. In either vintage or regular compressor mode, you have options for detection behavior. RMS bases the response on the average signal level. Peak, of course, bases it on peak levels, transients, making the compressor a bit more aggressive with transient material. The auto gain switch tells the compressor to automatically apply the correct amount of makeup gain based on the amount of gain reduction to try and maintain the same overall level for the compressed and uncompressed signals. This one actually works quite well, though I still prefer to set makeup gain by hand. The auto release button causes the release time to vary following the changing input signal. This mimics the behavior of many classic so-called program-dependent analog compressor circuits. A well-implemented auto release can make for a much smoother compression response. To cover the rest of the controls, I'll switch the compressor into multi-band mode. I'll pick up there in the next clip.